My name is Andrej Novak and I am an idealist. Welcome back to European Idealist channel. Today's video is about liberal democracy and why it urgently needs an update. Or, to use my term from the introduction video of my channel, why we need to bring liberal democracy to the next level. On the one hand, liberal democracy is the best form of government known to man so far, with the best governance and common good outcomes for the most amount of people. No other system gives people as many benefits, rights and freedom. No other system guarantees basic human and civil rights as well as liberal democracy, which basically has humanism built into it. Yet liberal democracies are still facing many serious internal issues, contradictions and challenges, such as disillusionment and disappointment of citizens, leading to electoral apathy or support for extreme left or right-wing political groups, or even hate groups. Often, the benefits of democracies are taken for granted, or are difficult to see, leading people to doubt the legitimacy of the entire system. Other citizens feel uninspired by top politicians and yearn for a vision and real leadership, not just the drag of day-to-day business and administration. Others believe politics to be dirty and cynical in general, and assume that all politicians are liars as a matter of course. Some observers even argue that authoritarian systems are superior in terms of governance and efficiency, and liberal democracies will be overtaken and made obsolete by them. That some democracies experience democratic backsliding and become more authoritarian or even turn into full dictatorships seems to fuel this argument. Yet, Churchill's words that liberal democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others that have been tried is still true. But before we address how the serious internal issues, contradictions and challenges can be remedied, we first need to deal with the basic question. What exactly is liberal democracy? Well, the word for democracy derives from the ancient Greek words of people and rule, meaning rule by the people. In democracies, therefore, the citizens are the sovereign and choose their own government via elections. However, even in a democratic system, it would be possible to establish a tyranny of the majority, which would oppress minority groups and create an inhumane system. To avoid this, liberal democracies have protections of human and civil rights and freedoms built into their DNA, in most cases prominently enshrined in their constitutions, along with rule of law, division of powers, and freedom of the press. The basic form has been more or less unchanged since the entering of the force of the US Constitution in 1789. Due to these mechanisms and the political competition for the best ideas, liberal democracy has endured for hundreds of years, although it deviates from autocracy, which was the norm for all but the last few hundred years of 5,500 years of written human history. Despite the strengths, liberal democracy today seems unable to meet internal and external security threats, to safeguard our natural basis of life, i.e. the climate and environment, and to prevent extreme inequality nationally and internationally. This means it is high time to act and change things before we reach dangerous tipping points threatening our liberal democratic way of life and life itself. In order to get clues on how to do this, we can look to the past for answers. For example, by asking the question, how did liberal democracy develop in the first place? Well, to make a long story short, it came about by using the ideas of an avant-garde of thinkers from antiquity and the Age of Enlightenment and applying them in a practical experiment. In fact, sometimes the form of government in the US is still referred to as the American experiment. And conducting an experiment happens to be exactly the way of enlightenment and of science. So today, at a time when liberal democracy seems shaky, does not deliver on many of its promises for too many citizens, and is challenged by its internal and external enemies once again, it is time for the next experiment. After all, if people had not experimented, we never would have developed democracy and liberal democracy. And if we cling to what we have and resist changes, we may lose what liberal democracy or even simply what democracy we have. And while it would make sense to turn to academia for these changes, political science often has a bias towards the pre-existing and factual, as well as towards linear development. Mainstream political science is notoriously underwhelming when it comes to predicting non-linear developments. Paradigm-changing innovation in most cases comes from outside-the-box thinking, the kind I have been and am engaging in here, and the results of which I will present over the coming months here on European Idealist channel. But rest assured that I'm not looking for a revolution, but an evolution of liberal democracy. Basically, an update for liberal democracy for the 21st century. I hope by now you at least partially agree that it is worthwhile and indeed necessary to update our liberal democracy to make it more resilient and to let it reach more of its potential for the common good of more people. If you found this video interesting and useful, feel free to share it via your social media and whatever other way works best for you. And remember, not to curb your enthusiasm, let alone your idealism, because the world needs vitamin I. Bye, and see you next time.